And we're
What's up,
back.
bud? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm warming up. I was outside today, and it's about 48 degrees here in Chicago, if not a little bit lower.
Uh,
Winter has arrived.
Winter is here. We feel the effects of it. And unfortunately, my thermostat is out. And I look at that thing and I want to break it and just, try to figure it out. But I know it's better left to the professionals. And I'm waiting on that window, that 10 to 2 window. When are they going to come here and give me some warmth? So,
It'll be
my
about
goodness.
15 minutes from now, and Vince will be doing the show one-on-one by himself, right? And whatever you do, just get the old-fashioned dial. Don't go get the Nest and all the things. Just get the one where you turn the knob and the heat goes on or off.
I'm with you. Keep it basic, just make it work, A to B. I'm real simple when it comes to that, but it is definitely an experience. But these are the moments where I feel like I'm tough. I'm strong. I can
Sure,
I can
go put a White Sox jacket on.
Hey, they look better in the second half of the year. Let's not kid yourself. So next year is going to be our year. I wrote something today. I wanted to start this with, in a perfect world, a doorway would be wide enough for everyone to walk through, no matter how they move, what they earn, or what's life thrown their way. But in real life, that doorway can be narrow. And for people living with disabilities, sometimes it feels like the door to home ownership isn't even built yet. And so today on Epic Lunch and Learn, I really am thankful to have Vince with me today. He's going to share, his own personal trials and tribulations, what he's going through. And I wanted to talk about disability because, I feel like it's just one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough. And I don't think, unfortunately, it's the hyperboles. We are a country, we are industry that always excessive, always deal on these ends instead of right in the middle. So, if you're not, totally like inept, or I shouldn't say inept, but if you're totally disabled, yes, we have products and programs and policies for you. But if you're not, if you're right in the middle, it seems like that's that gray void that is there in our industry. And I just wanted to take time to, really lighten it up. So, I know we normally like to wait until some people are tuning in. If you want to talk about something else until, maybe about the 10-minute mark, we can. But, people are still, jumping on now. It's up to you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm a big advocate of, life experiences teaches you lessons, something you can't read in a book. I'll
Sure.
give a little background first. I was raised by a single parent, and I had a stepbrother who had a disability, but was born in the 60s. And we didn't have labels of they're autistic, there's this, there's that. It was he's special or he has problems, right? And one of the things people, when they deal with family with disability, and I did it myself, and I've come full circle now because I'm labeled disabled, is families try and do everything they can to try and help the disabled person. And maybe sometimes they shelter or stay away or go in a different direction of looking for the resources that are out there and the programs that are there. And later in the show, I'll get into one of the programs that was available for my brother, but I was never made aware about it. And everyone, the expectation of the system is expected for people to step up to take care of that disabled person. But what is the what ifs if there isn't someone else there? And that's kind of what I want to touch on today, but more getting into how to potentially use disability benefits to help you obtain a house or help you get the correct apartment to live in through a reasonable accommodation request, and how we look at the income or how we can put it together a representative payee, meaning the support person could receive the disability check and we can use that as income to help the family qualify. So they're little tricks that, and they're not necessarily tricks, but things that could be done in preparation. And another thing, while I'm not an expert in, if you are dealing with a family member who's older and they have assets, and you think there may be a time that you have to put your parent in a nursing home or assisted living or whatever that may be, and they don't have the funds to pay for it on their own, make sure you get with the attorney to figure out how to set things up so they don't lose everything that they earned. throughout their work year.
Yeah. So, I mean, today I want to talk about accessibility to programs. I want to talk about equality and opportunity. And I think those are kind of the three things that will sum up, a lot of this conversation. And I really appreciate you, Vince, just being open and honest today and really letting us know about what's going on in your life. Sometimes in social media, we always show the positives. Everything is the positives, the smiles. It's my birthday. I have a closing, all those types of things. But these are the realities and these are the real conversations. And because we're trying to make a change, we're trying to address a situation and saying maybe someone out there knows what we should do, or maybe someone out there knows someone that might be interested in this information that we're going to provide today, and do something about it. So we need to change, and it starts by having the conversation. So definitely you can get rolling. So when did you find out about your disability?
So I became disabled. Well, medically, things started going wrong in August of 22. I applied for Social Security disability in September of 23. They initially denied majority of applications at a 65% denial ratio for people 55 and under. So I received a denial in January, and I appealed it. I did hire an attorney the second time, and it was approved in a reconsideration period. So my timeline was actually short.
Sure.
It basically was a little less than a year. But when I did it for my brother, it took 5 years. And a lot of that is about paperwork, timing, getting the right attorney. And some of the times you need an attorney on it. The first go around, you don't, but more than likely you get denied. So it took time, but they went back and dated it all the way back to August of 22. So, I mean, I'm fortunate because I get a very high benefit amount because of the years I had working. So it's a little different than those that may receive SSI, which is Social Security supplemental income. Those are people that are disabled that might not have had a strong work history or didn't pay into FICA and things like that. And those benefits in Illinois for an individual person it's a set standard at $960 a month.
What was interesting, I got to do my stats. In Illinois, people living in subsidized housing who have a disability made up 21% of residents in 2023.
Yeah, I'm gonna want those stats, right? Because I got a lot of other things to use. I've seen a lot of that too. And here's the thing, like housing agencies, whether it's DuPage Housing Authority, Cook County Housing Authority, HAC, the housing authority for Chicago. Well, let me back up. HAC is the housing authority for Cook County. CHA is for Chicago, and DHA is for DuPage Housing Authority, right?
Sure.
Everyone hears about waiting lists and things of what you need to do in order to get on a waiting list. But right now, all those waiting lists are closed. And where I have a problem with the system is the state has a fiduciary responsibility to provide the most integrative possible living situation for people with disabilities. And that is a Supreme Court case. It was called Olmstead. It's legal document. The state of Illinois ignores some of the stuff. They say that, oh, we don't have funding or it's this or that, right? As a disabled person, that's not my problem. That's the state's problem, right? There's restrictions. We can't work. We can't do this. We can't do that. So, and I don't want to get political, but if you can't provide, then you can't restrict, right? And I have a legal cases going on, but that's something totally different. But the other thing is the housing agencies or the social service programs that design these programs, they're like, well, we don't relate to housing. And we'll talk a little bit about something called home health services a little later. That program doesn't operate without housing, right? So how can you get into this? Well, so-and-so has an apartment for me. Yeah, but it doesn't have a stand-up shower. It doesn't have a dishwasher. It doesn't have a washer and dryer. Someone that's disabled has got to walk up a flight of stairs. That's not the right accommodation, right? And I'm seeing a lot of that, obviously, for myself. But now when you're in it, you look at it a lot stronger.
Yeah, I the numbers really staggered me, because I was surprised on the concept. If we're saying 21% of all residents in Illinois have a disability. That's 1 out of 5.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So this is, and obviously our country, and not getting political, focuses on the 1% at times. And so if we're going to focus on the 1%, let's focus on the 20%. And let's
exactly. Right.
you know what I mean? Let's make sure we're focusing on all the type of populations that are impacted. And sometimes, for whatever reason, they're looked over, glossed over, and we don't realize that, let's help everyone. I'm just a big believer in trying to help everyone.
Yeah. Let me take that one step further. And you know a little bit about this, but when I applied for my disability, and in November of 23, I was at a means of my doctors told me, hey, no more working, wait for disability. This is what you have to do. We have to figure out what's wrong with you. I filed a petition for guardianship, asking the state to become my guardian, not for the purpose of capacity or the ability to make decisions medically, but from the financial standpoint that if I don't receive the right resources, I'm not going to be able to independently take care of myself.
Sure.
And again, I'm fortunate that I have a high disability amount, but regardless of if it's 3,000 or 2,000, it's still not enough in today's economy.
Correct.
Right? Long story short, the state appointed me a temporary guardian. And during the 14 months worth of litigation, I was evicted twice from an apartment, and I lived 7 months in a hotel. I was appointed a court attorney. I was appointed a temporary guardian. And at the end of a 14-month trial, they deemed that I don't need anybody.
Wow.
No other resources, no other services, nothing else. Now, my biggest thing when I filed for guardianship was, and let's just talk about it because this is what it really is. There's no independence if you're disabled and you can't provide housing for yourself, regardless of what the systems are or what they were. So during the probate court, I filed and asked the judge for an order to ask 2 major apartment complexes within the state of Illinois, they operate in Cook County and DuPage, to make a reasonable accommodation. I was to pay a third of the rent up front and assign my government-backed disability check to the Office of Public Guardian to ensure my rent payments were made in time. The apartment complexes denied those accommodations, and the state did nothing about blatant housing discrimination.
Wow.
And when we look at 20% of people are disabled, the system's like, well, it is what it is. They can go live wherever they can live. And when they find private landlords, you're talking 50 to 60% of that person's income, if not 100 in certain situations. It doesn't work.
So it's not only the availability, it's also, the discrimination that it gets, kind of the equality, right? So it's the equality situation as well. So it's like it's basically putting you kind of in a corner of your selection. Your selection is few because of this situation. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. I mean, and to give you another example of that, the people that run some of these programs were, well, Mr. Bertocchini, you get $3,000 a month in Social Security disability. Some people only get $1,800. You can afford to pay $1,700 a month. I go, I could pay $1,700 a month out of a $3,000 check. No, that doesn't work that way, right? And obviously my housing background turns into everything's based on a percentage, right? HUD says 30%, right? Here's what it is, right? And what are you talking about? And I'm just babbling off, right? And I'm just going where it is, right? It's like, well, if you gave me a voucher, right? And the average voucher for DuPage and Cook is about $1,700 for a 1-bedroom apartment. So that means I can go live in a $2,700 a month apartment, a third of my income. And, well, that's not how it works. No, that's how it works, right? But the difference is they're not used to seeing that because most disability payments are $2,000 or they're getting $1,000 in SSI. So you're only talking that the disabled person is only putting $400 to $600 towards that rent. In my situation, I'm putting a larger sum So I can go find a nicer apartment with the amenities that you would have, a stand-up shower, an elevator, this, that. They're like, well, you're looking to live the lifestyle that you had. No, I'm looking to use the resources that are available to people in the right capacity, right? Because if you put me in a supportive living facility, I got a washer and dryer, I got a dishwasher, I got an elevator, right? And the whole point is to keep me out in the community. So hopefully that kind of answered that on that.
Well, the thing is, they're not used to seeing you. They're not used to seeing someone that has the background that you do and the pushback that you can provide. So you actually can say, hey, I know about, old school HUD guidelines 3143.
Correct.
And you're trying to exceed my housing expense. And that's not right. And also too, you have a mind that says, probably, let's just use the number 3,000. You're probably, hey, I want to grocery shop. I want to have a good time with my life. Like I don't want to be a prisoner of my situation. I want to, and so, and they're limiting.
And you know me a long time, right? At a certain point in time, I become defensive. And when I become defensive, it's not a good situation, right? It's horrible. I mean, the audience might think, man, Vince is a really nice guy, but when Vince gets aggravated, right? Look out, the doors are coming off, right? And that's happened, right? I mean, we can joke. I mean, I threw a hammer through a government building, okay? Besides that being said, 7 times I picked up the hammer and threw it at the building. With that being said, the state's answer is, well, we'll put you in a supportive living facility. You're not putting me in a supportive living facility when I haven't been hospitalized. I don't walk with a walker. I don't walk with a cane. I still drive. I still function. That's not how this works. But, again, it's a lot of what it is and everything else that comes into play. And, like I said, the system looked for internal family support, and we'll get into that and later in the doors thing of the home health service.
Sure.
But it's broken, right? And it's been broken. It's not any different. It was broken when I had to take care of my brother, and I just looked at it as, I'll just go make more money and take care of it, right? And a lot of people do that. That's how they they step up and you take care of your family or whatever. But then again, you're missing the big picture of what could be, because like things I did for him was great. But now that I'm in his position, I could see how I could have did things different that would have been easier for him.
It's interesting. Just, and I appreciate you entering, allow me to enter this world with you, because, America, they always talk about America is this social experiment, and it's capitalism meeting socialism. And so, the firefighters, that's socialism. Police officers, that's socialism. It's not privatized, not yet, but it's not privatized. So, schools, public schools, that's socialism. And so it's like we have this giant experiment going on, where some of these things are socialism, some of these things are capitalism. But at the end of the day, we don't teach and we don't educate on what is available to you. It's kind of like, yeah, we got these programs, and if you know, kudos to you. And if you don't know, well, hey, we still have this kind of predatory mindset, or we really try to take advantage of the weak. We take advantage of the what you don't know, the lack of knowledge. You will perish. I mean, it's just unreal to me. Because we're thrown into life is life, and sometimes, and we're thrown into situations, and then it's like, can you sink or swim? Can you figure it out? And it's so cold, and just because you're able to swim doesn't make it right. And and so that's my point. It's like, hey, kudos to Vince. He's figuring it out. He's learning. He's stumbling, bumbling, figuring it out. But it doesn't make it right. We should know these things. There should be some type of directory or some type of playbook. Hey,
you're so 100, right? You're so 100 on that. It's part of like I had to pick up the ball and run with it and figure out, right? And I'm a big guy. I don't run fast, right? But I just had to make sure I didn't get tackled and knock people over along the way. I've done a little bit of that, and I've educated myself on a lot of it, right? But one of the major important things that a lot of people don't know about is Illinois has something called home health services. So after I had probably my 3rd stroke, a nurse gave a referral to go into this program. But this was after like 18 months. And it goes to the point of what you're talking about. Like from the hospital standpoint, they're not giving you the right direction. They give you a social worker, and then it's a dead end. And then you try and figure it out on your own, and then you don't qualify for this, or you're not in this category. You got to go talk to this person. Nothing is connected. Let's just put it that way, if that makes the easiest sense.
I looked this up, and this goes to a point that you made earlier. Under federal and Illinois rules, housing providers must give priority to applicants with disabilities needing accessible units or modifications. If someone on a wait list needs an accessible unit, they're entitled to the next available one ahead of others. And that's based upon the Illinois Department of Human Rights.
Yep. Right. And that falls into the accommodations and everything else, right? Like, same thing. When I had the probate order for the housing accommodation and the apartment complex didn't do it, I'm like, they're breaking federal law.
Correct.
Because if you have more than a 4-unit apartment and you're receiving housing vouchers, doesn't mean for the specific building. These were major housing complexes, sure. Greystar Management, RMK Management. So if you're taking the federal subsidy for a housing voucher for someone, then you automatically have to do a reasonable accommodations. And accommodations are not subject to how they want to do it. An accommodations to be granted if it doesn't create a financial burden to the institution granting the accommodation.
Yeah.
Then you get into a gray area for income, right? And that's where some of my issues have fallen into. But when you are on disability, you can't earn. So, right? So there's restrictions so if there's federal restrictions of what I can earn, then you can't hold me to the standard 3 times rental. Meaning income equal to 3 times the rent, right?
Correct.
And it's a lot of that, right? It's a lot of that.
But what are we doing though? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, just the logic in it. It's like, hey, I am, I'm legally disabled, but I do have the functionality to work. But if I work, I can't get my disability income. Like, I mean, what are we doing?
So I touched on that, right? And I mean, granted, we're flowing into questions. And audience, this isn't rehearsed. Me and Dante don't rehearse this. This is him doing his research, him calling me up last night saying, hey, our guest backed out. What do you want to do? I said, well, let's do this and this. And he pulls up numbers and here we are. Okay. Let me give a first disclosure. I support my veterans. We do mortgages for them. But why are there different levels of disability? Now, VA veterans, and I know you have a military background for your family,
yes.
Right? They're entitled to a VA disability benefit. I'm never going to argue that, right? They did something that I didn't, right? I didn't serve my country. So they deserve that, right?
Correct.
They receive a tax incentive if they own property.
Correct.
But a disabled person doesn't. A disabled person's not allowed to work up to a certain point. They can only earn what is called an SGA limit, which is $1,600 a month without affecting their benefits. But if they're on Medicaid, you can't earn that additional income. So there's some layers there. But yet a disabled veteran can receive the VA disability, work full-time, and then turn around and receive Social Security disability when they go to retire. So in my probate case, I told the judge, I said, how is this fair? I want to be able to work, but I can't. So what, I'm supposed to go live in the street because the state can't take care of me? But yet a veteran gets subsidized property taxes, the ability to work. And this goes to the perception of everything in general. The judge said to me, well, that young man, that veteran served for this country and you didn't. And this is a judge saying it that way. Now, later on, I found out he was a veteran. I get it, right? But here's me challenging something that should be equal to all. Disabled's disabled. Yes, I'm fortunate that I could still walk and I could still talk, but you limit what I can do and what I can earn as the same thing as if I was in a wheelchair or if I didn't have a voice.
I mean, the concept is we should be working together for the common good instead of now we're sparsing each other because of a situation like, well, are you disabled enough? You're not disabled enough. Or, oh, well, you're disabled, but you're not disabled from, from war or from, obviously. And yeah, it's a tough, I mean, it's a very tough conversation. And it's just, like I said, from day one, accessibility, equality, and opportunity are really the three major things that kind of go into this conversation because, I just, I worry about the opportunities for the disabled. I worry that it's not equal. And I mean, we're expressing some of these real life stories that are happening to you. Equality is not being shared. And then, accessibility, like how accessible are housing opportunities for disabled people, especially in the state of Illinois?
Yeah. I mean, Illinois operates on a needs allowance basis. So in the event you do get placed in a supportive living facility, the state says they can take everything of your disability check but $120 a month. So if you can, and use my example, my benefit's $3,000. So you're going to take $2,880 for my disability, put me in a supportive living facility with no car, no cell phone at 45 years old. But yet I can't take that same $2,800 and go get an apartment because the apartment complex won't approve it because it doesn't equal 3 times the rent. And you should be able to get an accommodation. But again, it's subject to what they want to do.
So 3 times the rent. So are they capping you at $1,000? Is that really like in your scenario?
So in my scenario, if I had a housing voucher, I would get, let's say I'd have up to $1,800 as a voucher.
Okay.
But I have to pay the first $1,000, which is a third.
Okay.
So if I found an apartment that was $2,000 a month, I would pay $1,000 and the voucher would pay the rest.
Got it.
If it was a $2,700 apartment, so forth and so on, right?
Right.
It's your income as well, right? But for someone who is on SSI who only may get $900 a month, their obligation is only $300. And then the voucher takes care of the difference. And in some situations, the person doesn't have income, or the voucher amount is lower than what the rental income for the area is, right?
Sure.
And where my going on that is, it's not just throw me in an apartment. The apartment should fit the needs of what that disabled person needs.
Got it.
Right.
Also location too. I mean, so it's like now we're starting to get proximity of like, well, where is a $1,800 affordable? In some nicer areas you can't even get in.
Correct.
You know what I mean? So it's limiting you as far as where you can actually go.
Sure. And Illinois passed the law that you can't discriminate against source of income in 2023. So, I mean, just kind of keep that in mind there. Right. I know we're going to hit to the halfway point. One other thing, if you are an adult who takes care of a disabled person who's over the age of 18 and you help them obtain housing and you take care of their daily expenses, you can become that person's representative payee for their Social Security benefit. And that is actual usable income that you can use for the disabled person without guardianship. And maybe we'll touch back on that a little later.
One thing I wanted to add to you was in Illinois, here's another stat for you. In Illinois, the average wait time for subsidized housing in 2024 was about 20 months.
It's longer than that.
Yeah. I mean, but that delay is horrendous.
And that's part of my point, right? People that are disabled, you're getting thrown in the same list. There should be separate waiting lists. If you're not disabled, there should be a waiting list. If you're disabled, there should be a different waiting list. But it's not. It's the same waiting list. So someone who can work can apply for the same waiting list as the disabled person, but yet they're supposed to put the disabled person up front, right? But you can't even get on a wait list to even start the clock. And at the end of the day, I mean, I'll sit here. I mean, granted, we don't want to get –
yeah.
Right. You can't get on the wait list to start the clock. The city hasn't given a voucher out in over 10 years. So there is no more housing assistance. It's just what it is. Right. And the home health service program, if we get into it, I'll give an example of how that can be used as a housing subsidy, but it involves another person. So it takes away the independence of the disabled individual, right? Because like I said earlier, for me in my situation, it's different. I incurred this disability in the middle of my life, but I still function at a high level. It may be different if I was autistic or I was born with my impairments and there was more planning involved and other things of that nature. You know, there are things called ABLE accounts that people can use to help, you know, plan for their disabled child. There's special needs trust and different things like that. So, you know, I don't want to get into all those details because they're complicated and I don't have all the information.
This wasn't a planned event. Yeah, this happens literally middle age, boom, I got a disability. Now you're trying on the fly, having to adjust, and there's no pamphlet, there's no booklet.
There's no pamphlet, there's no safety net, there's no nothing, right? You know, and I mean, and just it goes to show just how bad the system is, right? I faced two different judges, one in Cook County during my probate case, and one in DuPage during my probate case. And both of them signed an eviction order to evict me with no alternative. But yet I'm not able to work in any capacity. And I get it. I've been in this industry forever, right? It's not the landlord's fault that I wasn't able to make the payment. But the judge should also see that from a community safety standpoint, you shouldn't have made an eviction order, or you should have made an eviction order with terms of what we are going to do for this disabled person.
Correct.
And that's, you know, that's the fight. That's the battle, right? And the battle for me is I'm trying to fight them to try and get me the right assistance, and they're trying to push me to a supportive living facility, which is a violation of my civil rights.
Because they don't know how to handle it.
They don't know how to handle it.
You know, and I was going like this earlier. It's the extremes. They're used to the extremes. So, you know, if you're 100% permanently disabled, easy, just move them in here and, you know, shut the door, case closed. But the fact that you're not, it's like, oh, well, what do we do with them?
Correct. Right. And again, it's a lot different of the difference is if I was receiving SSI, Social Security supplemental, and it was only $900 a month, I wouldn't have much of an ability to maintain independence, even if I was granted the right assistance, because that's not enough money. But my situation's different, right? You made the rules. I need to live in them, right?
I was thinking of when you were talking about just the priority list, I was thinking of Southwest Airlines, you know, and how they have the groups, right? So, you know, before even Group A goes on, it's you know, priority list is first, and then second is you know, any disabled people, and then the third is you know, people traveling with kids. Then it's Group A, Group B, Group C, and so on. I mean, obviously that's going away next year.
Yeah.
You know, kind of a bad move by Southwest, in my personal opinion. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, they'll probably amend it and change it as they go along. People are going to complain, and you know, it's, you know, but it is what it is. They're still a good airline. I like flying them. They're easy. They're quick. They're inexpensive. I don't fly too often. It's inexpensive to the standpoint of most. You know,
it wasn't assigned seating, so you get to sit, you know, different places in the plane depending on how quickly you can, you know, register your little slot. Are you B16 or are you C53?
Yeah, or too bad when you're in the back of the plane and you're D, and you're 6 foot 300 pounds sitting in the middle of the seat, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, what do you want to do? You want to move in the middle, and I'll take the aisle and I'll lean in the aisle and give you a little more room, or hey man, it is what it is. Move your ass.
It is what it is. You know, but you've met some interesting folks on Southwest Airlines, being the ones sitting in the middle. Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I'm looking for a place to sit. Yeah. So that's funny. But yeah, let's take care of some housekeeping notes. This episode today is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today at 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. Now, if I've been talking about this and I decided maybe I just put it up here, but if you are looking for a blueprint, a step-by-step playbook on how, just what is a mortgage, how does it work, some trials and tribulations, some experiences that I've dealt with, definitely check out the book, The Ultimate Mortgage Guide. It's available on Amazon. I wanted to answer questions that I was receiving over 20 years ago and answer those questions. So then moving forward, people had a playbook of, hey, this is what it takes to make this mortgage into a wealth building machine for you. After the show, I want you to, if you're on LinkedIn, if you're on Facebook, or if you're on YouTube, stay on YouTube. I need all my followers, go to YouTube, check out our channel, Epic Spotlight. I want you to check out the most recent episode. It was with Martha Allen. I had the opportunity to speak to Martha. She is a remarkable figure dedicated to guiding both established and aspiring couples on a transformative journey toward fulfilling relationships. Her approach centers on three key pillars: faith, finance, and foundation, offering couples the tools to build profound and clarity as they navigate life together. So check out the most recent episode of Epic Spotlight with Martha Allen. That was a nice conversation. And we have some preferred listings, a couple new ones. So we'll start with the new ones. We have 541 East 60th Street, Chicago, Illinois. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath condo going for $150,000. Contact Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. And Evelyn also has a 8442 East Kingston Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, newly rehabbed, just hit the market. It's going for $279,000. You'll fall in love if you check it out. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath. So contact Evelyn Woods, 773-718-9742. We have 548 East 50th Street, Unit 3, Chicago, going for $269,900. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath condo. Contact Jessica Roberson, 708-518-8120. We also have 2 properties. These are all new construction in Jacksonville, Florida. 12673 Simbay Court and 12707 Simbay Court. They're both 4-bed, 3-baths. One's going for $374,990. The other one's going for $378,990. Contact Charday Nix, 904-520-8041. And we have 16029 Circle Drive, Markham, Illinois. Property is a 3-bed, 1-bath, great for investment property, going for $109,900. Contact Keith Terry, 773-655-1360. And we have 412 North Ridgeland Avenue, Elmhurst, Illinois, going for $410,000. It's a 3-bed, 1-bath. Contact Laretha Lowry, 708-670-8165. And we have 13827 South Wentworth Avenue, Riverdale, Illinois, back on the market, going for $150,000. It's a 5-bed, 2.5-bath. Contact Amico Pope, 312-600-7673. Now, all these properties are available on my website at www.danteroyster.com. That's danteroyster.com. Great opportunity for you to check out these if you want to look at the pictures of these homes. So hopefully we can get you pre-approved and get you into a mortgage. But we've been having a great conversation today talking about disability in Illinois, talking about accessibility, equality, and opportunity for disabled folks. We have some questions here. Appreciate everyone. If you can, put the questions in the comments section. We'll get to them. First one, the conversation is so needed. Thank you both for addressing real issues. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Jack, how can someone find out if they qualify for these Illinois housing programs?
Well, that's a wide range of different looking at it when you're talking about which housing programs, right? Vouchers are one thing. Illinois Department of IDA is another. So there's a laundry list of different things, right? Most people on disability are not going to qualify for a house without the assistance of someone else, unless they're given some form of subsidy. So not sure where you're kind of looking at that one. If it's, hey, I'm helping someone who's disabled, or, hey, this disabled person's trying to live independently. Those aren't really going to happen from a housing standpoint. They're going to be more project-based vouchers or housing vouchers. You there? Skimming the next question?
Did I skip? Oh, no, this is the next one. What's the biggest misconception about disability and housing access?
that there's availability. Right. I mean, I mean, there ain't nothing else to say to that one, right? I mean, I mean, I don't mean it to joke, right? But it's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. It's available. It's not available, right? I mean,
it's just my father had a double stroke in 2016, right around the national championship game, North Carolina versus who were they play? Villanova. And he had an episode, and it really went downhill from there. And it was a situation that he became disabled, and it's like, what do you do? And obviously, just like most families, we try to handle it ourselves internally. And we'll just take care of it. We'll deal with it. And eventually, it got to a point where it was just too much. It was just too overwhelming. The maintenance and the care that he needed was the situation. And so now, I'm thrust into that situation. And I think most people will all have to go through a situation where you become the parent, where the roles change. And it's so like surreal. It's so surreal for most folks because the age will be different. For some of you, unfortunately, you might have to do it at a younger age, 18 years old. For others, I was, in my late 30s. For other people, it might be, later in life, which is a blessing. But eventually the roles will change, and you have to kind of take care of your parents. And just going through the whole process of, trying to find housing access. And, to your point earlier, just, writing, giving up everything he's built for. I was like, man, we can't leave anything for the family. Like, he's got 3 sons. Like, can we save some money?
Yeah,
no,
I had
all of it.
I had to have that conversation with my mom when I was 24. She had a stroke. She was born in 42. She had a stroke in her early 60s, right? So it was like, hey, everything changes. Well, no. And there's the fight, and there's the arguments, and there's everything else that goes with it. Like I said earlier, I took care of 2 disabled people. I had a stepbrother who had special needs. And at one point, when I graduated from college, I thought it was easier to just have all of us live in one household. It was financially easier, yes. But the headaches and the stress and the aggravation and everything that goes with it, because I was the youngster. My brother was 17 years older than me. So there was always conflict of what we're doing. So it's always a difficult situation. But those are conversations you need to have with your parents if you think you're ever going to be in that position. And regardless if you think, you just need to have that type of conversation at some point in time. You have to sit down and say, hey, mom and dad, what happens if you get sick? Here's what we're doing. Here's what I plan to do. Are you okay with that? And then if it happens, you have to go and just do it.
Stick with the plan. Yeah.
You can't deviate from it and say, oh, well, we'll wait. We'll do it this way, or we'll try it this way. You got to make the decision up front, and that's what it is. I mean, and I had a rule. She said I had 2 sons. I didn't have a daughter. So, and excuse my language when she says, if I can't wipe my own ass, it's time to put me in a home.
There you go.
And that's what we did when the time came.
Yeah. It's actually amazing with your story that you were even able to get to Arizona State and leave the state, and just leave them here. And fortunately, nothing really, I hope nothing happened while you were gone, but that was a blessing in itself.
I mean, my senior year, she had a cardiac event, so there was that. But it took hey, mom, I need you to sell the house, do your thing, go rent an apartment with my brother. I need to get away from here and do school. Right. And then when I come back, we'll deal with it.
Right.
So it took a break.
Yeah. Interesting. Antoine, can you explain how equity building works for renters with disabilities?
So I could touch on that a little bit. Just depends how much equity is built and depending how and which programs you're in. Remember, insurance comes into play here, right? Whether you're on Medicaid or Medicare, then if you're on Medicaid, assets become into play. But the primary home is sometimes exempt for the disabled person. So that equity transfer, if you're a parent and you have a disabled child, at some point in time when you're doing your planning and your estate planning, you're planning that your assets are going to go to your child. And unfortunately, sometimes the opposite could happen. You can lose your disabled child before, as a parent, your son or daughter could pass away beforehand. So again, equity is different on how it's structured, right? I'm taking the standpoint of there is no more home ownership for me ever because it doesn't make financial sense. It's finding an apartment and some form of housing subsidy.
A little side topic on this. Thanks, Antoine, for writing that. Appreciate you. If you own a house as disabled, there is an exemption, right? I believe I've seen that. There's
Sure,
a disabled. Yeah,
there's an exemption, but remember, then where's the money coming from to pay the house?
exactly.
Right? Illinois operates in an in-kind support state too, right? So they'll look at my financials and say, well, wait a minute, how are you paying that money? Where's this extra money coming from? Oh, so a family member is giving you money. Well, no, that counts against the Illinois spend down, which is part of the Medicaid program that operates the insurance. Now, the Department of Rehabilitation Services, or DOORS, has an exemption for people in that program that their primary residence is exempt. So again, if you're not in that program, you may not have that exemption because your Medicaid insurance is deviated from your assets and different things. Again, it's so much planning. I need to probably contact your editor and create my own version of the blueprint somewhere down the line when this is all over.
Seriously, you got something there. It's fascinating that in-kind support. So if an uncle or an aunt, here, Vinny, we're going to give you $10,000 because every year because we just want to help you out and support you, but you have to document that, and that's going to reduce potentially your subsidy from the state.
Correct.
So that's wild. That's
right.
Wild.
Absolutely. So like one of the things in my probate case, they're like, well, can't you find someone to sign a lease for you as a co-signer? And I said, sure, I can find someone to go sign a lease for me. But what happens the day after they sign that lease and I have a stroke and I have to be placed in a supportive living facility? And now they're on the financial responsibility. That's guardianship. And that my arguments were in court, right? I'm 46 years old. If I can't take care of myself and find a place to live, then I need a guardian. Well, no, that's not guardian. Well, no, that's guardianship. It may not be on the law, but people out in the world, that's guardianship, right? I mean, it's what it is. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You want to do what's right for the people you know or your family and everything else, but you have to look at it from a big standpoint. Like, wait a minute, how does this all work?
I will go to the next one. What advice would you give to realtors working with clients with disabilities?
Well, I mean, that standpoint there is the exact perfect scenario for what we do, right? It's getting the team together or talking with everyone involved that's helping that disabled person and figure out where that support's coming from, right? Whether that, hey, I have an annuity, I have a disability, I have X money here in this account, and how can we structure it, right? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we can use assets to qualify. We could set up draws. But again, it's who's signing the paperwork.
Marissa just helped a lady in a wheelchair, the Jacobs family, purchase her property. So Marissa would probably be the best one to explain it. That I know it was a little tedious, as far as getting documentation. Disability also brings just, mobility can be some issues as well. So, but you got to stay patient and help them out and get it done. So,
one thing too. Amy. If you are in programs and you do buy a house that needs modifications, the state will pay for some of those modifications. So depending which programs you're in. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah. Brad, what's one simple step people can take today to start this journey?
I'm missing what he's trying to get at because, I mean, granted, I don't mind the journey, but it's not one that you want to take the steps for, right?
No.
So, I mean, and I don't mean that in any way. It's just life happens, right? And the journey doesn't start until, unfortunately, that situation starts.
Yeah, I can't read really into that one too tough, but yeah, I would definitely say, if something happens, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your life. It's just something you have to deal with. I think the best thing is to, I would imagine utilize Google, right? Google and all the perplexities and chat
Yeah, I mean,
GPTs. I mean,
me and ChatGPT has basically been my attorney, right? I mean, hey, I need help drafting a motion. Here's the situation. It does what it does, and then I go file paperwork, right? I mean, that's the journey that I've been on recently, right? I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. That was pretty much the journey life, that I would say is that you got to work with AI. That becomes your personal assistant, and start figuring out some things for yourself. It's just once again, these things do occur in people's lives, and with the stat, I think it said in Illinois, approximately 10.7% of the population lived with a disability per 2020 consolidated plan. And so that's more than 1 in 10 people. So accessibility and housing options aren't niche issues. These are real live situations that people are dealing with. 10% of Illinois, and so that's huge, and definitely needs to be talked about. What role does technology play in improving accessible housing today?
So, and I tried to look at this. There's no one simple database. There's no one simple wait list, right? Which they should be. It should be one standardized system, but every county has their own housing authority. Nothing is interlinked. There are some websites that have lower priced apartments that are advertised, but once something's advertised like that, then everyone's there, right? So there's not really enough technology in that. And I think part of it is just the expense of it doing it, right? Because it's just a manual system.
Yeah. I think technology, we were talking about AI more than anything on just using that, and it's something, Vince, you really touched on, and I think sometimes in our career as loan officers, when we're talking to so many different people, we're talking about different professions, we're having an opportunity to step into different people's lives and see it, with your own lens, but in their world. And we see, situations like this, and unfortunately, you're dealing with it, but I think you're doing a hell of a job, and you're figuring it out. And but not everyone is as strong as you, and and not determined. You're determined to get an answer.
But so stop that. Appreciate it. Thanks for the compliment, right? But I mean, like I said, I mean, it is what it is, and this is my fight, right? Like, eventually, this is going to turn into my new hustle, right? Like, this is what it is. I've accepted the standpoint that life isn't what it's going to be. You can't do the things you did before, and it's not that I don't function correctly, but I have a neurological issue. Just for the audience, it's not more physical. It's my neurons don't fire as fast as they used to, right? I still function. Fatigue sets in. If anyone has a brain injury, this is where that issue comes in. It's not that I wake up in the morning and I could function, but then at the end of the day, my legs are dragging. They don't move. And some of that is not seen, right? And, oh, you don't look disabled, or you look healthy, or, and again, I'm not sitting here trying to fight it. The fight is what it is. And, with my background, you're not going to tell me no, and I'm just going to walk away, right? It's just not going to happen. So,
right. Well, let's talk about, we got about 7 minutes left. Let's talk about Facebook. Let's talk about what you're doing, some of your agenda, and what would you hope to see?
So we did not plan today's episode this way. I know I plugged the whole thing twice this week, and I made it 3 days in a row. It was not planned. It just happened that way. Dante called me up. Kind of the format of what we just kind of did here today is what I want to do with that other Facebook page called Let It Rip with Vince. I have some other ideas, and in time, I want to educate people, but also there's no, like you said, there is no resource. And I'm not saying I'm going to be that resource, but it's to the point of the information needs to happen, right? Like, I mean, I've sat here and talked to 2 separate state representatives over the last 6 months, and like, oh, we don't really see how that can benefit things, or, oh, what could we do to change it? Well, and this is where this gets personal, right? I've reached out to the Department of Rehabilitation Services directors. And in particular, I received an email back in March that says, Mr. Bertocchini, We don't know what to do with you, and we've exhausted all of our resources. Now, the DOORS program in Illinois is designed to help what the state deems the most disabled or at risk of homelessness or shelter placement. And for a director of a program to tell me to go live in a shelter when my combined disability income and my personal assistant allowance equals $3,000 a month, and the state wouldn't approve an accommodation to allow me to use both benefits to obtain independence because it's federal funded programs, not a state program. And the state and the federal program requires the state to provide housing assistance in addition to the support, right? And some of where I'm going with this is the system needs to change from the standpoint of what happened is they built this DOORS, and I realize I'm getting a little off topic. They built this DOORS program to help people with disabilities maintain their independence. But the program for DOORS does not function without a second person to take care of the disabled person. And as I said earlier, I'm fortunate that I'm still able to walk, still able to talk, drive, and everything that goes with it. Majority of the people in this program can't, but that doesn't mean that the ones that can shouldn't get the right assistance to allow them the right community involvement. So that's kind of where I'm going. And in time, I don't want to say I'm going to be attacking, but I'm going to try and create some form of non-for-profit to help people in that situation. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's the direction.
If you want to change for what you say you want, you got to change for what you say you want. You got to change. You got to change. No, it's you're being proactive, and I can always salute that. Your heart's in the right place. I know that, and obviously it stems from something that happened to you personally, and and that's just kind of the nature of all of us, right? Once it happens to you, then it's like, hey, we got to do something about it. As long as it doesn't.
And that's the thing, right? Like it's happened to me, unfortunately, for, well, let's call it 24 years, right? Because I took care of 2 disabled people, right? And the fire wasn't as bad because it wasn't me burning, right? Now it's me burning, right? So, you do what you can for family, but you still move on. And I have a brother who's disabled. I take care of him, but it's not like, hey, everything's being done. I still have to live my life, right?
Correct.
Like we used to have fights because he wanted to live the way he wanted to live, and I didn't, And then also too, the stigma of people with disabilities, or they can't have their money in their account because they drink or they gamble or they build bad habits or whatever. Like, and that's the stuff that needs to just flat out change, right? Like, we're in a day today where it's just like, hey, give the person's not supposed to be living in the 60s in terms of how we view disability, especially the way we label things in today's world.
Yeah, no. Oh, well, definitely. I wish, once again, it's bigger than me. It's a macro level. I just try to do my part.
Yeah, it's totally a macro level, right?
Yeah,
I mean, and maybe one time we'll joke around and I'll pull up the video that the state used to show me throwing the hammer through the government building, and we could.
Yeah, I got to see that. I got to see that. That's a highlight.
This is our opening things to the audience. So
yeah, that's a highlight. We got to get that on Google Slides right there and put that might be our intro, man. We got to still work on getting an intro. That was the first thing I ever did was press the countdown button, and all of a sudden, and I was like, well, I don't know how to change it now, so I guess
here we go. Just let it rip, right? It is what it is. Let it
is
rip.
what it is. So, hey, it was a great week this week. Definitely some great stuff. Did you hit the 100, or do we still need the audience to get you there?
No, I think we need about 10 more. So help me plug it. Again, everybody, my normal Facebook page is Vincent Bertocchini, which is on the screen. The little side page is called Let It Rip with Vince. If you guys can get me to 100, I appreciate it. It's part of one of the things in order to be able to go live. You need 100 viewers or followers, and I don't want to do it with my normal page. I want to use it completely separate. So appreciate it. Thanks for the questions. Hopefully I gave everyone the answers. You guys can always reach us or me at 708-359-8578 if you have a question that's more specific to today's topic. Let you go ahead, buddy.
Hey, 365 people were listening today. Appreciate you guys listening, and great questions. And we'll be back next week. It was Monday through Wednesday at 12 to 1 o'clock Central Time. We'll be back next week for some new guests and new topics. If you did like this topic, if you want more information about this, make sure you give this a thumbs up, and definitely that way we know topics to go back to and just re-review. And obviously next tomorrow on Thursday, we'll have our latest and newest Epic Spotlight podcast. A little controversial, so check it out. Hopefully you like it. But it was an interesting topic. I'm always willing to have conversations with a lot of different people. And so it was just fascinating to get a good view. So make sure you check out tomorrow's Epic Spotlight. Don't forget about Martha Allen today. And then on Friday, obviously, we still have our newsletter that comes out at 5 p.m. Central Time. So make sure if you're not on our newsletter, and that really breaks down mortgages and what's going on, it gives you little tips and tidbits. Go to www.danteroyster.com. You can put in your email there, sign up for the newsletter. So that way you'll be a part of our newsletter, get some good information and some good food baking tips. So we always give some food baking tips, or are pretty cool. And then on Friday, it's Dante's monologue. So I really take some time out and I try to break down a topic or something that's on the top of my head. And I'll give you, anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 11 minutes of, just a monologue. So some people seem to enjoy it, and I appreciate that. It's been a wide range of things that have been on this head of mine. So definitely check that out on Friday. And then we'll be back Monday better than ever.
Yep. I'll see you on Monday, man. I appreciate it. Thanks again to the audience. Everyone have a great afternoon.
All right. You take care.
Later, bud.